The mist was deceitful. That fog clung around the remains of Metz, France, at 6:47 a.m. on November 3, 1944. It was a damp, chilly garment that promised safety and concealment. Private First Class Michael Donovan was crouching inside a crushed bakery, hoping it would stay. He was 22. Through a jagged breach in the wall of the bakery, he saw the world emerge in colors of gray after 6 months of fighting. The German positions across the street were ghosts, gradually solidifying as the sun started its feeble rise. Donovan worked as a sniper. On paper, his task was straightforward: locate the enemy snipers and eliminate them before they murdered the 5th Infantry Division soldiers. Machine gun nests, interlocking fields of fire, and more than 200 defensive positions. However, the German marksmen were the true issue, the deadly issue. They were not the same. They could not be seen. They had patience. They were also pursuing him. Donovan wasn't a novice. He had graduated from Fort Benning at the top of his sniper class. He carried the fabled M1903 Springfield, a rifle with an 800-yard accuracy and a scope that could put the enemy's face in front of him. However, it didn't matter because the Germans always saw him first. In the battle for Metz, the 5th Infantry Division had already lost 23 American snipers by early November. Consider the figure: 23 snipers, the finest marksmen in their battalions, not infantrymen dashing into a machine gun. The hunters were now the ones being hunted. There are 23 empty bunks. 23 letters home began with the words, "We regret to inform you." The 23 men who were eliminated were all shot while looking for a target. They never even saw the people who killed them. Donovan had attempted to figure out the riddle. He had conducted interviews with the men who survived, the medics, and the spotters. It was always the same pattern: one flawless shot from an unobserved perspective. The Doppelstelle, or twofold position, was a doctrine that the Germans had developed. It was deadly easy. A German sniper squad would set up 2 covert locations that were 30, 50, or even 100 yards apart. From position A, they would fire one shot. The American sniper squad would dive for cover as soon as the rifle cracked, and then follow their training to locate the adversary by triangulating the shot and scanning the region of the muzzle flash. 12, 15, or even 20 seconds passed. It's time to settle the scope, take a deep breath, look through the debris, and locate the metallic glimmer. However, the German sniper had already left. Therefore, it was a trap. After firing, he quickly proceeded to position B by crawling via a tunnel, a trench, or a sewer. Additionally, he wasn't concealing from position B. He was holding out. He was aiming at the exact location where the American snipers must have been. The German had already pulled the trigger from position B when Donovan or his companions trained their scopes on position. It was easy math. It was cruel, and it was flawless. The Americans were looking. The Germans had a target. First to fire were the Germans, always. On October 18, 1944, Corporal James Bradley became Donovan's first partner. Bradley was a quiet, steady-handed farm lad from Nebraska. According to legend, could strike a running rabbit at 200 yards. He had already recorded 9 confirmed kills in just 3 weeks. He was competent. He moved quickly. They were put up in a collapsed textile mill that morning. Bradley was using the scope to scan a 400-yard-away factory building. Donovan was keeping an eye on the flanks and spotting. There was only the snap of a bullet breaking the sound barrier, followed half a second later by the thwack of impact, and the far-off crack of the rifle, a 7.92 millimeters Mauser cartridge. There was no sound or warning. Bradley was struck hard in the head by it. Even before his body touched the ground, he was dead. The shot came from a side window 400 yards distant while he was surveying the front. The muzzle flare was never seen by Donovan. The German was never seen by him. He instinctively fired 3 shots at the window, using suppression fire. However, he was aware that the man who had shared provisions with him 10 minutes prior had vanished. Before Donovan even realized they were being pursued, the enemy sniper had discovered them, aimed, fired, and probably disappeared. Bradley passed away right away. At dusk, Donovan had to carry his body back. A replacement was dispatched by command. It was necessary to hold the line. The mission went forward. 11 days after Bradley, on October 29th, Private First Class Robert Chun became his second companion. Chun was not your typical rural guy. His hometown was San Francisco. 12 verified kills, steady hands, sharp eyes, and a little city swagger. He was a Springfield artist. For 8 days, they had been working together, sharing stale bread, whispering to each other, and keeping an eye on each other's backs. They were surrounded by debris close to a trench line in a new section. Donovan was spotting, and Chun was on the scope. The same order: thwack, snap. However, this one was not like the others. Chun didn't die right away. The round blasted through his lung and struck him in the chest. Perplexed, he turned to face Donovan. He made a terrible wet sound as he began to breathe after attempting to talk. Donovan tore open Chun's field dressing as he hurried over to him. The blood was bubbling from the wound when he pushed the cloth on it. On a filthy French floor, Chun was drowning in his own blood. Donovan cried out for help. He persisted, urging Chun to wait and assuring him that everything would be all right. Chun had his eyes open. He was awake and afraid. He was only alive for 40 minutes. Donovan held him for 40 minutes, applying pressure to the wound and pleading for assistance while being pinned down by machine gun fire and witnessing his comrade and companion choke. 350 yards distant, the German sniper had been hiding in a heap of debris. Donovan discovered the German's whereabouts after Chun passed away. The medics eventually showed up and declared him dead, and he was once more left alone. A little hole in a brick mountain served as the ideal hiding place. The German had long since left. It was likely that he had spent an hour observing them. It was impossible to break the trend. American snipers position themselves. The American snipers are on the lookout, but the German sniper strikes first, taking one down. Command continued to give the same pointless directives: utilize concealment, move about a lot, and stay mobile. They were unable to comprehend. They were unable to identify the issue. Donovan noticed it. Every time he attempted to fall asleep, he could see it in the back of his mind. Chun, eyes wide, gasping, Bradley, falling like a puppet with cut strings. For the next 3 nights, instead of sleeping, he sat in the dark, peering at the scope while holding a chilly rifle. The issue was the scope. Your entire universe shrank when you gazed through an 8x magnification scope. It became a small 8-degree cone. It was similar to viewing the conflict through a tube of toilet paper. A single window frame was perfectly visible from 400 yards away, but the second window 50 feet to the left was out of sight. The rooftop above you was hidden from view. The heap of debris behind you was hidden from view. It was impossible to see anything outside of that small cone. The Germans were aware of it. They attacked the man who was holding the cone, not the cone itself. They brutally took advantage of this blindness. From where the Americans were observing, they refrained from firing. From the flanks, they fired. They fired from perspectives that the Americans were not looking at. A German sniper was already aiming at the American sniper's head, waiting for any movement, when the irritated sniper moved his scope to seek a different sector. When you can't see your opponent, how can you defeat him if he can see you? How do you simultaneously keep an eye on your front and back? How do you perceive dangers that you are not aware of? Donovan was by himself now. Without a spotter, he was a sniper. He was instructed to wait as a new partner was being assigned. Donovan was aware that he had just been given a fresh man to watch perish. He didn't know the date, but he was number 24 on the list. Donovan was cleaning his personal gear on the third night following Chen's passing. Not his gun, which was already spotless. He took out and unzipped his standard-issue shaving bag. A basic 4 by 6-inch mirror, a bar of soap, and an old razor. Typical metal frame used by the military. He lifted it up and gazed at his own reflection, looking 40 years old and exhausted at the age of 22. As he lay on his cot, he glanced from the mirror to his rifle, back to the mirror, and then he had an idea, a crazy, desperate, hopeless, magnificent notion. What if he could see forward while using the mirror to see behind him? It was crazy. Totally in violation of all the rules in the book. You were court-martialed if you altered issued gear or modified precision sniper equipment without permission from ordnance. Bradley, however, had passed away. Chun has passed away. There were 23 American snipers killed. Donovan had no desire to be numbered 24. On the evening of November 2nd, he worked by himself. His apartment was hidden away in a former hotel. It was reduced to a skeleton of broken glass, crumbling ceilings, and shattered walls. Smoke, cordite, and wet plaster filled the air. On the third story, he discovered a room with a partially undamaged roof that was peaceful. One feeble flashlight was ignited by him. It was a chilly November night. In the beam, he could see his own breath becoming hazy. He took the mirror 4 by 6 inches, metal frame, scratched but reflective out of his pack. He also took out wire cutters, a knife, and a roll of electrical tape that had been recovered from a signal core wire spool. These were the tools of a desperate man, not instruments of accuracy. He placed his M1903 Springfield on an improvised table made of shattered pieces of furniture. Held by steel rings, the ATNX sight was positioned 3 inches above the barrel. The mirror had to be installed so he could see it with his eyes fixed on the scope, but it couldn't get in the way of the rifle's functionality. It was unable to obstruct his visual picture. He tried locations. If they were too high, he had to remove his eye from the scope, which was a deadly error. It was too low and prevented him from seeing the bolt of the gun. The angle was pointless because it was too far forward. His hands were numb from the cold, and after 20 minutes of silent trial and error, he finally discovered the ideal position. Mounted on the left side of the scope, oriented at a 45 angle and roughly 8 inches ahead of his eye. From there, he could see a tiny flickering picture of the mirror in the peripheral vision of his left eye when he peered through the scope. He could see his flank with a quick glance, just a slight movement of his eye, not his head. He was able to look behind him. As he started the installation, his hands were trembling, not from the cold, but from the horrible gravity of what he was doing. This went against all he had been taught. Unapproved alterations to military property, including precision equipment. The death penalty and reassignment to a rifle platoon were the minimum penalties. A dishonorable discharge was the highest possible outcome. However, Donovan continued to see Chun's face in the low light as he slowly died, gasping for oxygen and bubbling blood from his chest. The German had shot Chun from the side while he was gazing ahead. Chen might still be alive if he had been able to see that flanking angle. Donovan made strips out of the electrical tape. After creating a cushion with them around the mirror frame, he wrapped more tape around the thickest portion of the scope tube. The tape served as grip and cushioning. During the rifle's violent recoil, the mirror had to remain in position. It was unable to move. It was unable to rattle. It took 40 excruciating minutes to install. The glue on the tape kept slipping under his freezing fingers. The mirror continued to move out of alignment. It slipped off entirely twice, hitting the shattered floor with a crash. His heart thumped in his chest each time it fell. He would be in irons by dawn if someone heard him and an officer came to look into it. At last, it held. He put the rifle on his shoulder, looked left, and focused on a dark spot on the distant wall. He could see his entire rear arc, the corridor behind him, and the doorway in the mirror. It was successful. He secured the mirror frame firmly by running the tape around it 3 more times. When he checked the rifle's balance, the mirror might have added 4 ounces. Insignificant. He examined the alignment of the scope. Still flawless. The alteration appeared rudimentary, as if made by a kid. Clearly not manufactured machinery. It would be immediately apparent to any officer who examined the firearm. Donovan, however, had no intention of allowing any officers to examine his firearm. He stored his tools and tidied up the leftover tape. The time was 4:45. He would be relocating to a new job in the devastated industrial zone in 5 hours. That area was dominated by German snipers. In the last week alone, 3 American snipers had lost their lives there. Donovan would discover tomorrow whether the math of death might be altered by a basic shaving mirror. He met his new buddy, 19-year-old Texas resident Private Sam Martinez, that morning. For 3 weeks, he had become a sniper. No kills. Good intuition. Terrified. Martinez noticed the device on Donovan's weapon as they made their way outside in the gray before dawn. He gestured. "What's that?" Donovan gave him a look, enduring. Martinez stopped asking questions. They were in the same damaged bakery that Donovan had been in days before it. 6:47. The bakery's old brick oven offered a sturdy, gloomy fortress inside the ruin, but the south wall was gone, leaving them open to the street. They had a 400-yard view of the German-held factory complex through a gap in the wall, which made it ideal for snipers. With his M1 Garand ready, Martinez guarded the entrance to the chamber, keeping an eye out for German forces. Donovan took up residence behind his Springfield. The mist of the morning was clearing. The gray gave way to the factory, complete with smashed windows, collapsing roofs, and heaps of debris. They were waiting somewhere in that wreckage. Donovan looked directly into the scope. The factory was sharply and horribly focused by the 8x magnification. He started his slow, deliberate sweep from left to right, searching for movement, a shadow that was too dark, or the tiny round glimmer of an enemy scope. 400 yards distant, his field of vision was limited to a 50-foot cone. Bradley and Chun died as a result of that. Blind to the outside world, they had been staring through the same small tube. Donovan had the mirror now, though. It was visible in the periphery of his left eye, a tiny, warped, scratched reflection. It displayed his sides, the abandoned buildings across the street, and the street behind him. It was something, even though it wasn't flawless. He noticed it at 7:23. Motion. Factory. The 3rd level. Window damage. A shadow. It might be debris. It might be the wind. The movement resumed. Human. Unquestionably human. A German soldier moving slow, careful as snipers setting up. Donovan determined the distance. 410 yards. There is no breeze. A simple photo. His hand gripped the trigger more tightly. He was going to put an end to it. Then he noticed it in the mirror, a small, nearly undetectable flicker of light behind him. He had assumed the building across the street was uninhabited. Window on the 3rd floor. Donovan remained still. He didn't look away. His gun was directed toward the factory, and he kept his eye fixed on the scope. But all of his focus suddenly shifted to the mirror. He noticed it when he looked at the reflection. A German sniper, the dark line of a rifle barrel, and the sparkle of a sight. The German had his sights set squarely on him at the opening in the wall. It seemed likely that he had spent minutes observing them. Before he pulled the trigger, he was most likely drawing his final breath. It was this. Bradley passed away at this precise moment. Donovan noticed Chen as he was concentrating on a target to the front while a flanking sniper prepared the fatal shot. The mirror worked. Martinez, German sniper, building behind us, 3rd floor, left window, he uttered in a barely audible whisper while keeping his weapon locked on the factory. He's currently aiming at us." To his credit, Martinez remained unflinching. Slowly and smoothly, he raised his M1 Garand, pointed it toward the building behind them, and located the window. Martinez muttered, "I see him. On my count. The one at the factory is mine. The one behind us is yours. 1, 2, 3, fire." The Springfield broke. Donovan's shoulder was struck by the recoil. 410 yards. The German in the factory window suddenly vanished after a hard hit. Martinez dismissed as soon as Donovan did. The window frame behind them was penetrated by the Garand's .30-06 round. Just as he was about to kill them, the German sniper leaned forward and dropped his gun from the window. 2 shots. 2 murders. 5 seconds. After working the Springfield's bolt and ejecting the hot, expended casing, Donovan loaded a fresh cartridge and performed another scope scan. There were no more dangers visible in the mirror. They were obvious. Martinez's heart was racing and his breathing was labored. He fixed his gaze on Donovan. "You were about to be shot by the German. You were dead because of him. How did you perceive him?" Donovan just tapped his scope's rudimentary tape-covered mirror. Martinez gazed at it for a very long time. Every sniper rifle in this battalion needs to have that installed. That morning, the engagement lasted 4 hours. 6 German snipers were killed by Donovan's group. Martinez received 2 and Donovan received 4. And 3 more times, the mirror kept them alive. Donovan saw a target in his sight 3 times before a second flanking threat materialized in the mirror. Every time, the coordination was perfect. Donovan took the forward target while Martinez engaged a flanking threat. The double position strategy employed by the Germans was ineffective. They had a broken, unbeatable system. A 10-cent piece of glass and some tape broke it. Word had gotten out by the afternoon. Donovan's squad had no injuries and 6 kills. Other groups were curious as to how. Martinez explained the mirror to them. 3 more platoon snipers requested the change by nightfall. The first was 28-year-old Montana hunter Sergeant Frank Wilson. In 3 weeks, he had lost 2 partners, both of whom were murdered by unexpected flanking gunfire. That evening, in the same dim, dilapidated hotel room, Wilson observed Donovan mount the mirror on his weapon. He inquired about the position and the angle. Wilson tested it after Donovan was done, peered through the scope, looked in the mirror, and declared, "It's perfect. I ought to have considered it." Wilson's group fought German snipers close to the cathedral early the following morning. Wilson used the mirror to see 2. Before they could fire, he killed them both. That night, he returned in a rage. He said that the change had saved his life. He told all the snipers he was acquainted with. Donovan mounted mirrors on 9 guns by November 8th. The change extended from team to team and from sniper to sniper. They gave up waiting on Donovan. Snipers began creating their own mirrors out of whatever they could find, including shattered glass, shiny belt buckles, and even chrome fragments torn off wrecked cars. The kill ratio for the battalion started to change. For every German eliminated in October, American snipers in the Mets lost 2 men, a 1-to-2 ratio, and a losing game. The ratio was 4-to-1 in favor of the United States by mid-November. For every American lost, 4 German snipers were slain. Now that the hunters had returned, Donovan faced a new challenge. The change was no longer a secret. It was well-liked. The man in charge arrived on November 10th to inquire as to why. The battalion sniper platoon was led by Captain Robert Hayes. Having served in the Army for 12 years, he was an expert in all sniper manuals. He was a bookish man. He was inspecting equipment, confirming rifle zeros, and performing a routine inspection. In a bombed-out church tower, he ascended the stairs to Donovan's position. He noticed Donovan. Martinez caught his eye. He also noticed that Donovan's Springfield had a mirror taped to it. Hayes simply came to a halt. He gazed at it. He pointed for 10 long silent seconds. "Private, what is that?" Donovan's stomach fell. It was this: the Marshall Court. Everything he had been afraid of. Martinez interrupted Donovan before he could respond. "Sir, it's a mirror." A change Martinez gave a detailed explanation. He mentioned Bradley. He mentioned Chan. He discussed the flanking strategy used by the Germans. He described how they might perceive those dangers through the mirror. It had saved their lives several times, he informed Hayes. "It's completely unauthorized, sir, but it works," he concluded. Hayes glanced first at Martinez and then at Donovan. He approached. He didn't scream. He simply stared at the gun, looked at the amateurish tape, checked the mirror's angle, leaned over, placed his eye on Donovan's scope, and took a quick peek at the mirror. He got to his feet. He comprehended. Right away. With a hushed voice, he glanced at Donovan. "How many rifles are modified in this way?" Donovan had a dry throat. "9, including mine, sir." Hayes was silent for a considerable amount of time. Donovan readied himself for a rest. Then, Hayes stated something Donovan didn't anticipate. "I want every sniper rifle in this unit to have one by tomorrow AM. That is a private order. I'll take care of the paperwork. You just think about keeping my soldiers alive." Stunned, Donovan stood there. He had just been told to rewrite it by Hayes, a man who lived by the book. He had just changed the official battalion policy in an unapproved, court-martial-worthy way. Hayes comprehended. Regulations were ink on paper, he knew, but his soldiers were flesh and blood. To protect his snipers, he was prepared to jeopardize his career. Donovan didn't get any sleep that night. He led in addition to working. Wilson, Martinez, and the other snipers with the alteration were recruited by him. He demonstrated for them how to install the mirrors, including the precise angle, optimal placement, and proper tape technique to prevent shattering due to rebound. They spent the entire night working in the dilapidated buildings and basements of Metz, a small, covert manufacturing run by desperate individuals. Tape was utilized to mount some mirrors, while telephone wire that had been recovered was used for others. Leather straps ripped from a German gas mask case were utilized by one sniper, an Iowa farm lad. The techniques differed. Giving the hunter 360-degree view was the same idea. The German snipers found themselves in a buzzsaw on the morning of November 12th, when every sniper in the battalion had a mirror on his gun. Overnight, their world was altered. They were now slain by their invincible Doppelstoll strategy. They would set up two positions, firing from position A in anticipation of the Americans scanning that area. However, the American sniper was already observing location B in his mirror, rather than scanning position A. German snipers repeatedly encountered a single person as they moved to their second position. 30.06 round from an American sniper they believed to be outwitting them. The mistake was shown in intelligence reports that were later obtained. The unconventional and aggressive new American sniper tactics were documented by German commanders in the Metz. They said that before the German snipers could fire their second shot, Americans were counterattacking from flanking positions they shouldn't have been able to observe. In an attempt to adjust, the Germans retreated to engage at a distance of 600 to 800 yards. The mirror displayed movement regardless of distance, thus it made no difference. In an attempt to overpower the Americans, they attempted an attack using several snipers at once. It was ineffective. Working in pairs, the American teams were now unbeatable. With one man, Martinez, watching the mirror and another man on the scope looking forward, they were able to stop nothing. The unimaginable occurred by late November. Metz's terrifying German snipers ceased to engage. The American sniper squads began to elude them. Not only had the tactical advantage changed, but it had been overthrown. Naturally, the Army never formally approved the change during the conflict. Not at all. The rudimentary mirrors were discovered in December 1944 by a training inspector. He prepared a harsh assessment that detailed unapproved changes, ordnance protocol violations, and the lack of uniformity. For weeks, the report was in circulation. Officers in the back argued over how to deal with it. On the one hand, it was a flagrant violation of the rules. However, the sniper teams who used these mirrors had previously unheard of kill ratios and survivor rates. 3 military and 2 civilian ballistics experts made up the official Aberdeen Proving Ground evaluation team that visited Metz in January 1945. They looked at the mirrors. They put them to the test. The snipers were interviewed. The improvement in field of view was measured. The tactical advantage was calculated. They came to the conclusion that the mirrors should be incorporated into sniper doctrine right now since they significantly improve survivability. The group returned to the United States and prepared a formal recommendation. They recommended adding peripheral mirrors to all sniper rifles. They even created mounting brackets that were standard. They pretended to be the ones who found the innovation. Michael Donovan, a private first class, was never mentioned in the paperwork. Martinez's didn't either. Hayes's didn't either. The official record would reflect that Army assessors had found a problem and developed a solution. Captain Hayes was enraged. He made an effort to update the record. He was a letter writer. He turned in after-action reports, ensuring that Donovan's name appeared in each and every battalion record. However, those reports were forgotten, put away, and lost in the vast bureaucracy of a worldwide conflict. The official version was the one produced by the evaluation team. In February 1945, Donovan found out about this. An officer asked him whether he wanted to register a complaint after showing him the documentation. It was read by Donovan. He witnessed a committee given credit for his concept, his last-ditch midnight gamble. He declined and returned the paper. The credit didn't matter to him. He was concerned about the survival of snipers and that partners were not being killed by unexpected gunfire. On May 8, 1945, the European war came to a conclusion. After 11 months of fighting, Donovan had registered 47 confirmed kills. At least 6 more times, the mirror had saved his life. Martinez made it out alive with 14 kills. He returned to Texas after the war and started working as a police officer. He had a picture of Donovan's weapon on his desk for 30 years. Wilson 31 kills survived. He was saved 4 times by the mirror. He returned to Montana and started working as a hunting guide. Donovan remained in the Army until 1946. After that, he returned to Pennsylvania. He was hired to do the same work he had done prior to the war in a factory. In 1947, he got married. 3 kids were born to him. He led a tranquil life. He never discussed the conflict. He would simply respond to questions by saying, "I was a sniper. That's all." The mirror was not mentioned by him. He made no mention of rescuing numerous shooters. He made no mention of transforming European sniper combat. He simply didn't think it mattered anymore. Therefore, it wasn't humility. The mirror change was forgotten by the 1960s. Better optics were found in new scopes. Donovan was never acknowledged in the Army's official history of sniper operations. Time and bureaucracy, not malice, had obliterated his contribution. There is no historical significance to field alterations. These are official developments, and the narrative ought to have ended there. However, it didn't. Unusual references were discovered in 1987 by a military historian studying sniper advancements. Improvised mirrors were noted in 5th Division maintenance reports from 1944. A private first class, Donovan was noted in the logbook. Finding soldiers from that unit took months for the historian. When he located Sam Martinez, Martinez told him everything, including Bradley, Chan's terrible demise, Donovan's installation of the mirror in the dark, how it spread, and how it saved them. Donovan was located by the historian. He was still in Pennsylvania at the age of 67. "Did you install these mirrors?" The historian inquired. "Yes," replied Donovan. "Why?" Inquired the historian. "Why?" Donovan had never discussed it. Based on survival rate improvements, that simple 4x6 mirror probably saved between 40 and 60 American sniper lives. The historian then informed him. Donovan remained silent for a while. "I never counted," he continued. I simply recalled Wilson, Martinez, and the others who returned." On June 7, 2001, Michael Donovan passed away. He was 79. His World War II service was mentioned in his obituary. The mirror was not mentioned. The fact that he saved dozens of lives was not mentioned. Family, a few friends, and 4 elderly individuals his family didn't know attended his modest burial. They introduced themselves following the service. The mirror had saved the lives of these men, who were snipers. They had flown hundreds of miles to pay their respects after learning about Donovan's passing in veterans' newsletters and making sure his family was informed. Donovan's account can still be found in transcripts, old logs, and pieces. However, an M1903 Springfield from World War II is on display at the Infantry Museum at Fort Benning. A tiny rectangular mirror in a 4x6 metal frame is affixed to the scope using rudimentary tape. The label reads, "Field Modification Common in late 1944. No name is included." Donovan's legacy is that mirror. The genuine one, not the official one. This is how innovation truly occurs in combat. Not in committees, but in the shadows, by soldiers who identify a problem and risk everything because they can no longer bear to watch their buddies perish. In order to save one individual, he installed the mirror. His identity is forgotten, but his concept saved dozens of lives. However, you do now.